Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to FP1 and welcome back to the penultimate episode of the Post Podium Podcast after the Sakhir Grand Prix, and a race that we all kind of expected could throw up something a little bit different, a little bit strange, but wow, what a race we got. It was brilliant. I loved it. From start to finish, there was always something going on. Heartbreak for some drivers, elation for others when they jump straight into it today. And as always, I am joined by a very special guest on the podcast. Delighted to be joined by Mike from F1 Fanatics. Mike, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. I'm very well. And yeah, absolutely. What a race that was. Maybe it's a kind of bid for ovals-esque races in the future of just kind of allow drivers to go flat out. And it certainly led to kind of elements of excitement, didn't it?
Yeah, I think we were all kind of expecting a DRS train, but honestly, I'd be happy if Bahrain dropped the original layout and worked with that, because it was great. You had that really bumpy middle section, which I don't think it has ever been used, or this layout has never been used in a race before, or at least a World Championship race. And even before F1, I was watching F2, and I was thinking how these guys have not had a monumental accident. I have no idea, because the racing was so ferocious, so tight. Then F1 was no different, and really, what better? I've been torn with. Do we start with Russell? Or do we start with Perez? Because it was just the opposite weekends for them, wasn't it? Let's start with Sergio. He didn't last the first, which is mental. You don't see that in modern F1. It was giving me Jenson Button 2011 vibes. Obviously, got caught up in that accident with Verstappen and Charles Leclerc on lap 1, turn 4. Lucky to get away with that without some significant floor damage. I thought all three drivers would be out there, but Perez got through it, pitted on that one, obviously caught back up with the rest of the field with the safety car, and from there he was just in his element. And I've seen a lot of people saying, he was showing that kind of world's champion caliber driver in that he was in the situation, but he never gave up. He kept fighting, he kept pushing, and that obviously paid off towards the end with an incredible first win for him.
Yeah, world caliber driver is. I think I always describe Checo Perez as you've got the elite guys in the sport, like the Hamiltons, the Vettels, the Verstappens, Leclercs. You can argue whether Vettel's in that category or not anymore, but that type of caliber driver. And I think Perez is always that driver who's just slightly below, but he's still very, very good. And in fairness, I think he's driving the best that he's ever done in his career. He's taken all that knowledge that he's, built up over his years in Formula One. All that experience is kind of coming into place. I mean, we shouldn't really be surprised of how well he's doing, because at the back end of the 2019 season, in the second half, when the Racing Point car finally got that funding from Lawrence Stroll, started to kind of materialise, he outscored the rest of the midfield there and pretty much secured fourth in the championship with the victory. Just an amazing drive from him. And I think I say it on our driver ratings video, I don't think it could have happened to a nicer guy. He really is one of the good guys of Formula One.
Yeah, and that's not a title you can really give out lightly, I think, in F1. And yeah, all this, and he's not got a drive for next year. I know it's been said before, it's been said a lot, but we've got to cover it. Red Bull and Alex Albon had an awful... We can finally return to the section on this podcast where I can slay Albon a bit, because he was actually doing all right for the last 2 weekends, but this time round, it just didn't come together. He nearly went out in Q1, went out in Q2 on a track really which isn't very technical. It's not a difficult track to accept. Obviously, I'm just a viewer. I'm not saying that I could drive better than Albon could. Or maybe I could, but I don't know, given how bad he was. But no, this was not a technical track. It was a track with a Red Bull, and you saw what Verstappen did. Verstappen got within 5 milliseconds of pole. Albon was way off the pace this weekend. One of the worst I think I've seen it this entire year. And Perez, you got winning the race. That's got to be an advertisement for Red Bull. And where do you see that going? Will Albon keep that seat? Because I thought the momentum was swinging in his favour, but now, I don't know. What's going on there, do you think?
My view of it is, as an outside perspective, obviously there'll be pros and cons to everyone keeping this. I cannot see any possibility in any world that the pros of signing Sergio Perez are outweighed by the cons of it. And if Red Bull have any ambition they would sign Sergio Perez. And I say if they keep Alex Albon, it shows a complete lack of ambition as a team. And I think they have a threat of, in a few years' time, becoming a midfield team, because it's a team element, and you've got to, especially when you're the chasing pack, you've got to have two strong drivers. And, earlier in the season when Albon debate comes up, I go, Red Bull trying to compete with Mercedes. Would Mercedes sign Alex Albon? And the answer is obviously absolutely not. They wouldn't sign a driver like Alexander Albon. So if you're trying to compete and be at that level, why would you sign Alex Albon? But I now even look further afield and look at the Renaults, the McLarens, the Racing Points. Would any of them sign Alexander Albon? I think the answer is no as well. So if you're then conceding that ground to your rivals, for me, you're just going to be going backwards and you're shooting yourself in the foot. And it's almost like a golden ticket there. Like, they saw how effective it could work with Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber back, obviously, in the times where they nailed the regulations, and they could well nail the regulations in 2022, especially as it's aero, and they have one of the best guys in the business in Adrian Newey on their wage packet. Why would they not sign Sergio Perez? And also, they're looking at kind of buying the IP of their address. We already know that Sergio Perez comes with a huge amount of money as well. I'm sure some of that money could go to helping maintain the competitive engine before the freeze comes in. I don't know, 2023, I think they're suspected coming in. It makes absolutely no sense if they don't sign Sergio Perez, and I think it would... I could not understand the decision whatsoever, and today just compounds Albon even more. It's just not good enough from him, is it?
Oh, 100%. I know there's a lot of Albon stands watching, so I'm sorry. He's shit. Let's move on. George Russell. We on the subject of shit weekends. It wasn't really a shit weekend. It should have been a brilliant weekend, and it was a shit weekend for... No, it wasn't George's fault. I'm so gutted for him, because he dominated FP1, dominated FP2. FP3, he was trying some new things. Qualifying was kind of more going Bottas's way, but George got so close to him. 2 milliseconds. The race, George was another level. I'm gutted. I am really gutted, because he deserved a Max Verstappen-esque debut win. He really did deserve it. He got a better start than Bottas on the dirty side of the grid. Was well ahead of the pit stops. Yes, he got the benefit of pitting first, but he had to work to get into first to do that, and he did it on lap 1. And let's start with the first, as Toto Wolff said it, fuck up, the pit stop. They've now said it was a radio issue. A radio wasn't working. So in other words, they knew that Valtteri was pitting, but they didn't know that George was pitting, or when they knew George was pitting, it was a lot later. So they came in, they fitted the tyres for the car, and then realised, hold on, we thought that was Valtteri. Who's this second Mercedes pulling in now? What was your takeaway from that? Because for me, I think Mercedes were done in by their own cockiness, because they didn't really need to pit both cars on the same lap. They had that gap advantage. They just didn't need to.
I couldn't believe it. I honestly could not believe it. But then maybe there were early signs in the race that George Russell was struggling with a power unit thing, wasn't he? There was like a mapping in the hardware software, and Valtteri was actually eating into the time quite a lot, and Russell was complaining. So maybe you kind of had the early signs in this race that things weren't going to quite go well for him. Look, it was comedy levels of Germany 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With the Lewis Hamilton pit stop where everything
and
kind of
Netflix
went chaotic.
Netflix were with them again,
No.
and it happened again.
No.
They were there with George Russell. It's happened again. It's I don't know.
I feel sorry for George, but at the same time, what he's done is, I think, secured his seat for Mercedes in the future.
Oh yeah.
Because like you said, there's going to be plenty of other opportunities for George Russell to win. He so deserved it, and I think everyone realises we're so kind of warm to the heart that Sergio won, but everyone realises that Russell essentially won that race. He drove the flawless race. Everything that possibly could have gone wrong went wrong for him, and he embarrassed Bottas. And I don't know what it says about Valtteri Bottas. Those probably Valtteri Bottas supporters going, he's just up against a world-class guy, a world-class champion. He's actually very good. His levels have been brilliant all the way through the season. And for George to be so close on Bottas's main strength, which was qualifying, and then to absolutely command him at every stage of the race, wow. I mean, if there was a performance clause in Valtteri Bottas's contract, I'd be sweating right now, because Russell, the only thing that kept Russell at Williams was Claire Williams. She's now gone. So if Mercedes wanted to, there's no real need to, but they may want to, because the grids will certainly have taken that notice of that performance from George. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, Williams know they've got a backup in Jack Aitken as well, who, despite his little issue today, or yesterday even, still, I think, drove a stellar weekend and really surprised a lot of people with how close he was to Latifi. He's had one FP1 in the car before that, and Aitken, I think, was one of the most impressive drivers today, given the circumstances that everyone's in at the moment. And yeah, I think you're right. I mean, Toto Wolff has come out and said that Bottas is not under threat for next year, but I think he's going to be thinking about it. And one of the reasons, I remember when this was all announced, one of the things that I was most concerned about was, what if Hamilton decides to call it a day? Can Bottas lead Mercedes? And I think he's proved this weekend, and I think he'll probably prove again next weekend, that no, he can't. This was his first weekend doing it, and he was rattled, making mistakes all throughout FP1 and FP2, locking up everywhere, made loads of mistakes in the race. The tyres going off at the end were, again, as a result of that cock-up from Mercedes in the pit stop, so it's not necessarily all his fault, but still, he just wasn't very punchy. And we've always said this about Bottas, he's never really gone for those moves. He's just sort of there, and that's really why I don't think he's won as many races and came close to winning any championships at his time at Mercedes. It's been really disappointing, because in if you think back to his time at Williams, he really was impressive, and he's now sort of just fallen off the pace a bit. And I say this as well, when he signed his contract, he slows down, and he has here. This was just a blaring example of it. But yeah, Bottas not looking good. Let's go back to Perez and the midfield teams, because that was an interesting one. Ocon getting that podium, great for him. This is usually the point where I can rip into Ocon's weekend, but he has been getting better and better and better as we go through as we go through this latter half of the season. And a P2, he says it silences his critics. There we go. His one performance, I'm waiting to see a little bit more. I need to see this consistently from Ocon, and he did benefit from strategy as well. But really, despite that podium, Renault are going to come away with a bit of a sour taste in their mouths, because Racing Point have pretty much solidified this P3 place now in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think Renault, the last couple of races have pretty much ruled themselves out of it, with McLaren having strong finishes as well. But look, yeah, I agree. What you can probably give a bit more leniency to is this was always probably going to be a transition year for Ocon.
Yeah.
Having a year out the sport, and he's doing what you'd hope that he would do on a trajectory. Obviously, ideal scenario is he comes in like he's never been away and he hits the ground running and done that. That wasn't the case, but he's got stronger and stronger as the season's gone in. This was his best performance of it. Yes, obviously fortunate with strategy, but he took full advantage of that. That's part of the plan for F1. When the opportunities are given to you, you've got to be able to take them. And I think what was impressive as well is that Racing Point was lightning quick all weekend. Obviously in the hands of Sergio, proved how quick it was going from last to first in that situation. But he performed the undercut on Lance Stroll, put in a really good outlap there, kept him behind him even though he had the harder compound tyre. So technically Lance probably should have had the tyre advantage through that kind of sector 1 and sector 2 on the top part of the track. But yeah, was able to keep him behind, and Lance didn't really see him make any moves at any point on Ocon after Esteban beat him on the undercut. So hey, he did all he could. It was a brilliant one, and McLaren I think would probably be the ones who are most frustrated, because if Lando could have got a stronger points finish, it would have kept them close enough. It's still, and with Racing Point's luck this year, we could still be looking at a double retirement in Abu Dhabi and McLaren to claim P3 in the championship or a double non-points finish. But yeah, that midfield battle, if we take Mercedes and Red Bull out of it, what a championship we would have had. For constructors and drivers championship. It would have been absolutely superb. Obviously F1's not like that. There are the brilliance of Mercedes, but it has been brilliant, and I think it's nice for us fans to go, that's a glimpse of what it could be, because with the budgets all pretty similar between those teams, everything's a little bit closer. Hopefully that's what the 2022 regs will bring across the entire grid rather than just 3 teams fighting in the midfield.
Yeah, of course, fingers crossed. And I think just as a lasting point on that one, I guess you could say downside for these 3 teams is the fact there's 3 of them going for it. You're no longer talking about the gap in money from P4 to P5 or P3 to P4. It's now the gap in money between P3 and P5, which is even bigger. And McLaren are the ones you mentioned that I'm worried about. I am a little bit worried about McLaren. It's looking like it could be P5 in the championship, which isn't bad. It's not a bad place to be. But I think they're going to have to pull out a mega weekend. I think they're definitely the underdogs coming into this, which is, it's so mental how the momentum is shifting, because coming into this weekend, McLaren looked like they had P3 pretty much in the bag. And now, I really don't know. But let's wrap this episode off then with a few predictions. It's the last set of predictions for the 2020 season, so you got the honour of that one, Mike. Now, what I want from you is you can give me a top 3 prediction for the race and then a bold prediction for the weekend. Obviously, it's a little bit harder, actually, since we don't know who's going to be in that Mercedes, but give it your best go.
Well, I'll tell you what, whether it's Lewis or Russell, so can we have the leeway on that one?
Yeah, go
on.
I'll give you that.
They're going to finish first.
Okay.
It's a Mercedes stronghold anyway, and Mercedes never cock up twice in a row this badly. And I think George will have the beating of Bottas. I think Bottas has been mentally crushed by Lewis, and he will be crushed by this weekend, whoever's in the other Mercedes going forward. But I'll back him to finish strong. 1-2 finish for Mercedes. And I'm going to back Checo to get another podium, and Red Bull for something to go wrong to sum up Red Bull's season. Go from that. And also, if it isn't Checo and a Red Bull, it'll be nice to see him go out on a high on another podium.
Nice. Yeah, I can agree with that. And yeah, you made a mistake. You made a comment there about the mistake from Mercedes. They never make a mistake twice. Mercedes, it was a plane crash this weekend, but Mercedes, they're air crash investigators. They learn what goes wrong and they never make that same mistake again. I think that's the big thing with Merc, and I think you're right. It is a Mercedes stronghold. They have won every single race in Abu Dhabi in the turbo hybrid era, and I'm pretty confident it'll be George in that car. Looking at the COVID restrictions and I think Hamilton, he's either got to have 4. It's either 10 days since the negative test or 4 negative tests in a row. And given the fact he's apparently got symptoms, also we hope Lewis is well and he's making a speedy recovery, I don't think he'll be ready to get back in that car for Abu Dhabi. So I think it'll be George in that car. I think George is going to win it. Oh, do I want to say Bottas second? No, I'm going to say Verstappen second, Bottas third. Because I think Bottas is going to continue to get rattled. He'll make another mistake. Verstappen will make a comeback. As for a bold prediction, this is tough. And I'm thinking, because cars can't overtake, I'm going to say, do I want to say this? Yeah, I'm going to say Williams points. I think, let's go. We've been saying it all year, and it's never come true. We've got one more shot left. Come on, Williams. Do us proud. And I'll tell you what, I think it could be Aitken. Let's say Aitken in the top 10. Let's go with that.
Wow.
That is very bold. It won't happen. It would need a crazy race, which I don't think we've ever seen at Abu Dhabi. But you never know. I could be proven completely wrong, completely right there. And if I am, this video will be going viral. So yeah, let's just end things off then. Mike, do you want to talk about your channel a little bit? Shout yourself out.
So I'm Mike from F1 Fanatics. We kind of do driver ratings after every Grand Prix. Our F1 Fantasy, kind of looking at the F1 Fantasy game, keeping you up to date with all the points and stuff. And like this, obviously, we also got the Post Podium Podcast. We have the F1 Podcast every Wednesday. Obviously, with the current thing in F1 YouTube, in whether we can or cannot use F1 in the name, in any sort of name, we're just kind of going bold and going all in. With going the F1 podcast as well to kind of shut out. Sorry, Will, we've shut your podcast down. We're the only one in terms of that. It's our regular joke that we make on it. But yeah, there we go. We chat about F1. Like, if you love F1, hope you love this. But mate, thanks for having me on. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Will's channel. Almost at 10k. Come on, you got to get him over before the new year. Brilliant. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Cheers, mate. I appreciate the. I think I should hire you as my hype man. I think that's what I've got to do. But no, but obviously, we are so close to 10k, and thank you guys so much for all the recent support on the channel. It has been incredible. All the support, all the comments, absolutely love it. Don't forget to leave your comment down below as well. What you thought of the Sakhir Grand Prix? Did you enjoy it? Did you loathe it? In other words, are you a Perez fan or are you a Russell fan? And let us know your predictions for Abu Dhabi as well. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you all in the next one.